Hey, so happy Thursday. I got this question on one of my videos a couple days ago, and the question's been sticking with me ever since. And the question was, what do I do? How do I save money if 90% of all of my income is going towards living expenses? Today, it's really tough. There's inflation, cost of living is really high, and I just feel stuck. At least that's the way I kind of read the question, because you don't feel like you have a lot of control. And so the question's been sticking with me ever since. And so I thought I would share this video on how I would approach that problem if I were this person. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the 8 specific steps that I would take to change this situation where I'm stuck in a place where I'm spending 90% of my money towards a fixed housing expense and towards food, and I don't have a lot of money left over to save. And I'm going to walk you through the 8 steps that I would take, starting with the vision that I would create, the tools I need to make that vision a success, looking at the different levers that I could pull to influence my situation, along with tips and tricks for saving money towards income, drastic measures to consider, and then ultimately how I would plan out this whole plan and keep myself accountable by having check-ins. And I love this question because it goes to the heart of why I wanted to launch this channel, which is to help regular people with real money problems. And when I look around at traditional money advice, it feels pretty superficial and generic, and it just has this polish that doesn't really account for, I think, the reality for a lot of people, which is that money for most people is a painful thing, because you grind all day, you save money, and then you spend it on the bill the next day, and you're kind of in this endless cycle, and it feels like you can't ever get out. And so how is it that we move from a place like that to a place where we can start building wealth? And my hope is that with this channel, I can help people in this situation with real honest advice that anyone could use to better their situation. Okay, so step 1 of the 8 steps that I would take is first set a vision. And I strongly believe that you need a vision in any type of money situation that you're establishing. And in this particular situation, I would establish a vision that looks out probably about a year from now. And what I would create is a vision for myself that says, I want to create breathing room in my life so that as I earn money, I don't immediately have to spend that money paying bills. And what would that look like? So that would be breathing room 1 month. And what I mean by that is that you have 1 month of expenses saved for everything that you need in your life that you don't have to spend a paycheck on. So let's say it cost you $1,000 a month to live, just an easy number. That your target would be that I'm going to have that $1,000 saved in a year from now. And so you would set this vision and say 12 months. And the third part is that it needs to be a strong enough why, this vision that you're creating, that it motivates you to want to do all of the hard steps that we're going to talk about in the next 7 steps. And your why should inspire you to want to do this work. And so for me, this breathing room idea is I want breathing room so that I can set my vision on bigger things than worrying about day-to-day expenses. Because right now, I work all day, I go to sleep, I wake up, I pay a bill, and then my bank account's back to zero. I want to start creating a breathing room space, a little buffer that allows me to not be so anxious about money. So that would be a strong why for me. And the reason that a vision is so important is first the benefits. When your brain starts connecting these mental pathways, you're creating a target for your brain to aim at. So by saying, look, I want to save $1,000 or whatever your 1 month expense amount is by 12 months, it creates a target that you can start problem solving around. So it gets you thinking about, like, well, how could I go do that? It takes you out of this place where you have no agency. And that's the key part of this mindset is, it's easy in this situation to feel like you're powerless, and there are good reasons for it, because the general economy is so hard, and it just doesn't feel like you have control. This starts to try to reclaim agency over your situation by setting a target. And the analogy I would use is I'm a long distance runner. So let's say I wanted to run a marathon in a year. By setting even that target, it tells me, well, my body needs to be able to run 26 miles in 12 months. And so how many miles a week do I have to run? How quickly do I want to run that marathon determines how quickly and hard my workouts are. So it's the same type of thing for your money situation. Is you're creating a vision just like you would for your body or a diet plan or anything else. And I find that especially in these situations where you are living day to day, it can get really easy to narrow it in on your immediate problems. And this starts helping you kind of look more broadly at where do you want to head. And then again, it starts helping you problem solve about how to make that actually happen. And the last part is write it down. So write down write it down and then talk about it. So if you are a 2-person household, align this vision with your partner and say, like, let's create this vision together about where we're headed with money. And so this helps you with intentionality because now you're in it together with someone. And if you're by yourself, that's fine too. Still just write it down so that you can have something that you know you're aiming at. Here are the 4 tools that you're going to use to help your vision come to life. The first one is what I call zero-based budgeting, or what's commonly known as zero-based budgeting. I highly recommend and almost say you need a zero-based budget. And my recommendation would be you need a budget or a YNAB. It's free for 34 days and you don't have to give them a credit card or anything. So for this exercise where we're talking about these 8 different steps, you could use this tool at no cost to yourself. And then you could also do like spreadsheets, that type of thing. But the reason that zero-based budgeting is so powerful is that it's so intentional because it requires that every single dollar you have come in, you assign it a category, and you can't assign money that you don't have. So it requires that you're thoughtful about the dollars that you have coming in, and you're looking forwards at where that money needs to be planned before you get paid again. It also allows you to look backwards at your different behaviors to say, okay, I'm overspending in this category, what's going on there? And I promise you that if you start doing zero-based budgeting, I've been doing it for 15 years, you will find money that you just didn't realize you were spending because it shines a light on your total money situation. So you can look up tutorials on YNAB's website or on YouTube about how to use it. I'll probably be making my own content around how to budget, but for now, this is a tool you could work with. Then the next part is doing a 90-day financial audit. And what this does is basically if you download the last 90 days of your credit card and bank statements, you can import those statements into your budget tool. And YNAB does it for you pretty automatically. You just click import and you upload the file. Then you're going to have all of the different transactions that you categorize to your different spending areas. And this is going to give you visibility into where has my money went. And I promise is that you'll be surprised at the different ways money flows out of accounts once you start bringing visibility to it. Then the third one, this is not mandatory, but it's something that you can try, is try setting up automation so that when you get paid, you automatically, the bank automatically transfers money into a savings account. And so you can set up rules at any bank. So let's say you wanted to automatically send $10 to a savings account. That way, you never actually see that money when you get paid, and it just makes it easier to not have to think about the money and helps you avoid spending it. And so sometimes this works because basically if you don't see the money, you figure out how to live on the rest. The risk is that if you don't have a zero-based budget and you're not intentional with your money, you can just go into your savings account and take that money out. And so this is one of the things I tried when I first started on this journey. It helped a little bit, but it wasn't the silver bullet that I think a lot of people sell you on. And so this to me is much more intentional, and it starts helping you build a good plan. The last part is just make sure you have a high yield banking account. And so you can go to Ally or just search high yield banking accounts. If you bank with a large bank that doesn't give you any interest every month on the money that you have in your account, you're kind of missing out. And so even if you only have a little bit of money in there, it's extra cents or dollars that you could be using. So you should be making anywhere from like 3.5% to 5% on your money every single month. And so if you're not getting this type of free money on the money that you have in a bank, I would highly recommend that you just change the bank that you're banking with. So now that you have your tool set up, we're going to get into the 3 levers that you can pull to change your situation. And there's really only 3 levers. So you can either decide that you can increase your income up here, or you can decrease your necessary or fixed expense, or decrease your discretionary expense. And you get to customize which of these levers you pull, how hard you can pull them based on your own situation. But the important thing here is that we're really specific about the plan in each of them. And we pressure test if we've thought about everything that we have been able to, or more importantly, get really creative around how can we move these. And again, this goes back to the mindset of agency, of like, what is it that I can control in this situation that helps me either move these down or this up. And in this specific example, the challenge was, look, 90% of my expense goes to these fixed expenses with my housing and food, and I don't have anything left to save. I'm barely spending any discretionary income at all. So let's get into these different levers and how I would approach moving each of these. First thing to assess in the first lever that we're going to pull, which is our income lever, is in our household, is everyone working? And if they're not, could they? And so, again, it comes down to personal situation, health situations. I know it's different for everyone, but you can ask, if one person's working and another person's not, is an easy way to get to the vision that we just created in step one to have this other person work. And so you can think about this and just kind of level set if a household change of work will help your income. So that's kind of a yes or no. Second part is to look at long-term planning for your income level. And what I like to focus on this planning is mastery. And so the question you want to be asking yourself is, what skills can I build that build long-term mastery towards some subject matter that will professionally help me get paid more? And so you have to kind of do this soul searching for yourself. But again, you can write this down is, in 3 years, let's say I want to be a nurse, or, pick your skill, create a plan around what you want to become a master of, and then start looking at how you can do that. So there's free resources that I'll post. Yale University actually creates free online courses that you can take for general education. You can look at your work to see if they give you free money to go back to school. Surprisingly, a lot of these companies do give money that people don't take advantage of. You could look at trade schools or anything else that you might be interested in, that if you're not getting paid enough income today in your current line of work, kind of what's the long-term plan? And so I would have that running in the background and be developing that as we then kind of focus on what's my immediate term plan. Okay, so then in immediate term, what we want to look at is what sustainable extra work can we do that gives us the breathing room that we're working towards in our vision. So the first idea is this enjoyment in the immediate term. So if you have a skill, like you play an instrument, or you're good at teaching people, or a lot about a subject, I'll post these links, but there's free websites where you can do tutoring. So maybe you could tutor somebody. There's places where you can sell a service where you're training someone on something. Anything that you naturally enjoy that makes extra work not so painful. So that's the goal here, is like, how do I work more without it being so soul destroying? And so try to do an inventory of what you enjoy, what you're good at, and see if it's something that someone else would pay you for to learn, or just something, again, that you enjoy doing. The next part is like low paying side gigs. And so like an example might be rover.com. You can do dog walking or dog sitting, things that maybe you like working with animals, and, it's not something that is really emotionally taxing for you to do, that you could pick up 5-10 hours that would add a little bit extra money. The next part is shared work. So if, going back to this household idea, you have more than one person in your household, are there jobs that you could go look for together, maybe so that you could commute to work together and do something that maybe you both enjoy doing, or at least creates a fun work environment? One example I saw is a couple did food delivery service, and they shared the car. So one person went to get the food, one person drove, one person dropped off. And, you add 3, 4, 5 hours of that a week, but you get to spend time together, maybe listen to music, have a good conversation. Anything that tries to make the extra work you're doing a little bit more enjoyable. The next part is, could you negotiate in your current role? And again, this would go to a long-term planning strategy that I would create that says, how do I negotiate a higher salary or hourly wage that would help me with my income situation? So take an inventory of all of these and then think about which of these can you influence. Again, going back to agency and control, and decide, yes, I could do this here. No, I couldn't do this here, but customize it to your situation. Let's talk about the next lever that we can pull, which is step 5, your fixed expense. And I have a few rules for expenses. Expense management is probably my favorite part of wealth building. So it's just kind of the way my brain works, but you can negotiate everything. So if you don't negotiate today, just understand that anything that's priced a certain way can be priced something else. And so with zero-based budgets, you can question expenses. And so as you build your budget, start to look at, is this expense worth it for me? Is there a way to save money on this expense? And the rule is that there's really endless creative opportunity with practice to decrease expense. So just because an expense is what it is right now, don't believe that you don't have control over shaping that expense some way into the future. So with that in mind, let's talk about fixed expense. So for housing, that's one of the things that, like, right now you might not be able to change because you're locked into a lease or you have a home or whatever. But with housing, there's an opportunity, medium to long term, to consider downsizing. So in kind of this season of sacrifice that we're talking about here, where you're working towards a year of building this flexibility, one of the things you might consider is, if my housing expense is 60% today, is there a way to reduce that to 50% or 40%? Maybe I'm in a 2-bedroom apartment and it would be tough and painful to go to like a 1-bedroom apartment where you're sharing less space, or maybe it's not as nice of a place, but again, you look at downsizing to afford yourself the wealth building that we're talking about here. The other part is expense sharing and having a roommate. So this is something I've personally done throughout my wealth building journey. For instance, I used to pay too much for a studio on my own. And at one point, I got into a house with a group of people where I ended up only having like a shoebox, a small room, and a bathroom, but I was paying $400 a month. And so it cut my rent bill by like 66%, let's say. And so while this was painful and I lost a lot of privacy, and people might not want to have a roommate, what I decided was, look, I want to be able to save this money because I'm working towards this vision. And so if you're in a 2-bedroom apartment today, one idea you could consider is, do I just add another roommate here? And you can look at this creatively. Maybe this is an opportunity for a friend to also save money. So they're paying less money, you're paying less money, you're each saving a little bit of money, and you can kind of learn to enjoy it. Okay, and then if food is the other 30% of your expense category, a couple things. So make sure that when you do your zero-based budget and you're categorizing all of your meals, that you have a conscious meal plan. So ideally, you're looking at, how much money per meal am I spending? So if I'm really trying to save money, one of the things I would suggest is go to budgetbites.com, and they create meal plans, and it'll show you it takes $1 per serving to make this food. And so this can give you an idea of, well, okay, let's say I wanted 200 servings in a month or something. You would have an idea of how much money you would spend. And so getting really tight around a meal plan that fits into the budget that you're either trying to decrease by 2%, 5%, and any dollar amount counts to start creating this buffer. The other thing you can look at is food pantries. And to me, I mean, there's no shame at all in this. And so there's services out there and support groups that will give discounts on food. And so if you look it up, but like, you most likely have a food pantry in your area, highly recommend if this helps subsidize your food expense so that you could start creating this buffer. I'll also post another link. There's a subreddit on Reddit that has a great place where you can look at different meal plans for specific budget amounts. And so that could go towards saving on this fixed expense. Okay, so let's then go to step 6, where we'll talk about discretionary expenses and other things you can do to manage expense. This example, we said our discretionary expense was only 10% of what we actually spent every month. So already we're not spending very much. This is not a lifestyle creep thing. This is, I just don't have enough money to make ends meet. But in discretionary expense, there is still a lot of things you can do. The first rule that I have is you negotiate every single subscription, utility, or insurance that you have. So one, if you don't need it and you're really sacrificing right now and you're making this happen, cancel any additional subscriptions that are not doing something really necessary for you. But here's what you do. So for every subscription that you have, call them up or go online and threaten to cancel. What companies do is they have these programs that try to prevent you from leaving them. So if you call them and you tell them, look, I'm going to switch to a different provider if you don't give me a discount, you don't even have to say the discount part. They'll just offer it to you. And so every three to 6 months, you should be calling up the different people that you're paying and you're saying, look, I'm going to leave, and see what discounts they can give you. And sometimes they won't do it, and that's fine, but you should be trying. So if you've been paying the same amount for years, then go do this. It takes 10 minutes and you'll most likely save money. Even if you go online and try to cancel something, it might offer you something like, hey, stick with us and we'll give you 3 months for free or 50% off. On insurance, whatever you're paying for on insurance, after every single year, you should do a shop for a competitor. So if your current insurance company is raising rates, go to a competitor. Always kind of flip every year. There's no loyalty here. You're looking for what insurance meets my needs and how much is it? How much am I paying? And you're trying to save money. Okay, so then the next part is, if you have a cell phone, I think most everybody does, never overpay on cell phone service. So I would go with like a prepaid provider. Mint Mobile is a really popular one. They advertise like $15 a month. Do not be overpaying for overpriced cell phone services. Try to replace activities with free activities. So for example, like you could go to the library, you can get free books, entertainment, different things that, again, if you're doing your zero-based budget and you're seeing that you're spending money in specific areas, ask yourself, is there something else I could be doing with that time that I would enjoy doing, but it doesn't cost me any money? The next part, I know is kind of a personal thing, but to me, there's no shame in this. You can look at government assistance. You can look at assistance in your area, whether it's giving you a discount on things like your internet service or other ways to save cost. There's no reason to not take advantage of these things because that's what they're there for, is to help people. And for me, on my wealth building journey and this vision that you're creating, my mindset is whatever it takes. And so, don't have shame or guilt. I know that probably doesn't apply to most people, but I do feel like some people might kind of recoil at this idea. But if there's an opportunity to take advantage of assistance in your area, I know I mentioned food banks. Look at other ways that you might be able to get discounts based on the current economic situation you're in. Okay, so step 7, after you've looked at your 3 different levers, is to consider drastic measures. And so this step will not apply to everyone, and I can understand why some people might not want to do this. But here's the situation. If you are in a place where you are earning a low salary and you're living in a high cost of living area to the point where you simply cannot make ends meet, one medium to longer term option is simply move. And I know that's a drastic measure, and picking up roots and moving is a big decision for you, your family, people around you. You might be really focused on one area, but the economic reality, especially as the wealth divide in this country gets worse and worse, is that people are getting priced out of areas. And historically, it has been a thing where you see economic migration. And so it still happens all the time. And it's just one thing to consider is, could I be moving to a different area where I find the enjoyment that I'm looking for? Maybe you're an outdoors person. Could you find a low cost of living area that supports the things you enjoy, still allowing you to work, even if you got paid the same amount of money, but the cost of living is lower? And so this is something that you can consider in the medium to long term. Again, it's not a step that everyone needs to take, but I think it's something to have in your toolbox where you look at your income and your income potential, and then you look at your discretionary expense and your fixed expense, and you look at these different levers and you create plans and you make progress. If all of that doesn't work, then this is the next thing to consider. And it's a more drastic option. but it is something I would look at. And then again, it's an opportunity to get creative. If you have a partner, where could you be happy in, moving to be in a place where you're able to have more control over money? Okay, so now we're in step 8, and this is the final step where we establish a planning routine that allows us to keep ourselves accountable. And so what this could look like is once a week, you're going to update your zero-based budget. And on, let's say, Sundays, you're going to check in with the vision that you established, where in a year from now, you're going to save a certain amount of money that creates breathing room, and you're checking in with the target. So you could set targets in each of your expense categories as you get really precise about a budget. Maybe it's saving $10 here or $20 here. You could add accountability around the planning that you have for income, like by, let's say it's January 9th today. By February 9th, I'll have a side gig where I'm doing an extra 5 hours a week, something like that. So you build a schedule, and think about this as kind of like you're doing a workout. And so it's just like, you're keeping yourself accountable by going to the gym 3 times a week. It's the same thing here is you're trying to create accountability around the key actions that you're going to take that will help you get to that vision. And we talked about the different levers, the income, the expense, the long-term planning around building mastery, or long-term planning around a more drastic decision of moving. You can build all of that into some type of plan that you write down. And if you have a partner, you align with them. And again, if you're alone, still write it down so that you have kind of a vision for where you're headed, the things that you want to do in a daily, weekly, monthly time frame, set targets for them, and then you're checking in with yourself to keep yourself accountable. And then this last part is really, like I just said, is just specific actions that you're going to take to make it happen. And so as you do your zero-based budget, as you do your financial audit, things will start popping out at you. Again, when we talked about subscriptions and how to decrease pricing there, looking at grocery expenses and, can I meal plan differently to save money? Just load up specific actions that you think that you can do that will be challenging but are accomplishable. And so that allows you to continue this process so that every single month you're checking in with your vision. And so what this could look like is, let's say in month 12, I said I wanted to save $1,000. So your monthly plan then would be divide by 12. You're saving about $80 a month, let's say $80 a month. And so at the end of February, you're going to check in to see if you made that happen. And if you didn't, then I would pass that money on to a future month and then look at, okay, what do I need to start changing? If I'm stuck on my expense, how do I change my income? And these are the different things that I would get really specific about so that you're working towards targets. And in YNAB, as you learn the tool, if you decide to use YNAB, you can set up targets that help with this. So you can get really specific about what you need to do to make it happen. And just like anything that we're getting better at, if you're just starting out on this journey, you're going to have so many setbacks. You're going to set up plans in each of these areas, and it's not going to work out just like you wanted. And that's okay. So the goal here is that we have a growth mindset that says as setbacks come up, we're going to learn from them, and then we're going to change our plan. None of the plans that we're going to establish here are set in stone. And so it's flexible. And so you want to be flexible enough that as things happen, you can make changes and you can adjust this vision. And let's say you get here at the end of 12 months, you set a longer term vision then, and you continue to kind of grow your outward view of the thing that you're working towards. And so my challenge would be, stay creative, think creatively, try to take agency of the things that you can control as you tell yourself that you can do this with the different things that you explore in the things that we've talked about. Okay, so those are the 8 steps that I would take. And I hope that in each of those steps, you found something that you could customize for your individual situation, whether it's the expense tips or creating a vision or keeping yourself accountable, or the tools that I would use to be successful in changing this situation. I know it's a tough situation to be in. I've been in there myself. And so I hope that this is helpful to you. My commitment to you is that I'll continue to release content around being able to help you with money. That's really where my passion is. And I hope that that this channel can be a place where it feels real and not something that is just generic and and makes you feel like you don't have agency in your situation. So I wish you the best of luck. If you have questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and I read everyone, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.